Chapter 23. Lakinda was sound asleep in her cabin when the comm chimed. Blinking her eyes open, she fumbled for the switch. "Lakinda," she said. "Comm here, Senior Captain." The second comm officer's voice came hesitantly from the speaker. Lakinda felt a twinge of embarrassment. The primary bridge officers had quickly realized she didn't have their names down and had switched to identifying themselves only by their position descriptives. Clearly, the word had passed to the officers of the other two watches as well. So now everyone knew their captain was an idler with a bad memory for names. Terrific. "Yes? You asked to be informed immediately when a transmission came through," the officer reminded her, sounding even more hesitant. "I didn't see an exception logged for if you were asleep." "No, there wasn't," Lakinda said, though she probably should have put one in. Every time the Midsummer stopped for a repositioning, there was a message or two waiting for it. Most were from the Expansionary Defense Fleet headquarters on Naparar, but there'd also been a couple of general notices from the Defense Force Command on Scylla, along with two private notices wrapped in some family's private encryption. At this point, given their distance, everything was being pumped through the triad on Colonial Station Chaff. Though how long that would last, she didn't know. "What do we have?" "It's not from Naparar this time," comm said. "It's a signal from Mid-Captain Saprostraub aboard the Grey Shrike." Lakinda sat up in her bed, the haze of sleep vanishing. Apros was calling her? "Put him through," she ordered. May I remind the senior captain that contact with anyone except Counselor Lakuviv's office has been forbidden?" "So noted," Lakinda said, putting some ice into her voice. Apros knew she'd been called to a family emergency. He wouldn't be trying to reach her unless her ship was in serious danger. "Put him through." There was a moment of silence. Then, "This is Mid-Captain Saprostraub aboard the Expansionary Defense Fleet warship Grey Shrike," Apros said. "I urgently need to speak with Senior Captain Sodlak Indaro, current location unknown." Repeating. Lakinda tapped the mic key. "This is Lakinda," she said. "Go ahead, Grey Shrike." Aboard the Expan. The voice broke off as the recorded loop was deactivated. "Senior Captain, this is Mid-Captain Apros. Can you please boost your signal? We're a bit far apart." "One moment." Lakinda keyed for more power. "What's the matter? Why are you calling me?" "We need information, ma'am," Apros said. "We also have information, vital information, that you may need." "We meaning the Grey Shrike?" "We meaning myself and Senior Captain Thrawn," Apros said. "We need to know where you're going and the nature of your mission," Thrawn's voice came in. "That's confidential," Lakinda said shortly. "So her ship wasn't in danger?" "It's family business," she added, reaching for the mic switch. "I'm sorry, but I can't—" "Were you aware that 2 other families have also called emergencies?" Thrawn interrupted. "And that all 3 of your family assembly points are in the Ascendancy's south and southeast sectors?" Lakinda paused, her finger hovering over the key. "Which families?" "The Aragal and Pomrio," Apros said. "I'm guessing you didn't know that?" "No," Lakinda said, her stomach tightening. Those 2 encrypted family transmissions, and of course there were no Aragal or Pomrio aboard the Midsummer to receive and decrypt them. Had those been the same general summons she'd answered from the Zodlak? "Do you know what they're up to?" "No, but the fact that everyone's assembling in the same region strongly suggests a connection," Apros said. "First thing to do would be to boost her task force's speed, perhaps shaving the safety margins of hyperspace travel a little." "One more question, Senior Captain," Apros said. "Does your mission have anything to do with alien jewelry?" Lakinda froze. What the hell? What alien jewelry? "Jewelry that a species called the Agbui have been handing out on Selwys," Apros said. "They claim they're the ones who created it, but they aren't. It comes from Sunrise, the world of the Magus and her refugees." Lakinda's chest suddenly went tight. "Is it just the jewelry?" she asked carefully. "Or does the metal also come from there?" "I don't know," Apros said, sounding a little confused. "I assume it's made with local materials, but I don't know for sure. Is that important?" "Vitally important." Lakinda braced herself. "The Agbui claim to have a mine on an uninhabited world. We're on our way to claim it and the planet for the Xodlak. I'm guessing the Aragal and Pomrio have the same goal in mind." "Really?" Apros said. "That seems a little odd." "Not at all," Lakinda said between clenched teeth. "One of the metals in the weave is Nyx. She'd expected Apros and Thrawn to go silent at that one. She was right. Not just Nyx, but Nyx that's apparently abundant enough to be wasted in fancy jewelry, she continued. What the hell is going on? They're scamming you, Thrawn said. You and the other families. They're mining Nyx from Sunrise, having possibly incited a civil war there in order to gain better access, Apros put in. In retrospect, I'd say that's almost a certainty, Thrawn agreed darkly. They then created the illusion they were mining the metal from an entirely different world. Complete with a mine, miners, and refining facilities, Lakinda said, remembering Lockjeep's assurance that she'd personally seen the place. Building up a lure so enticing that the entire Zodlak family jumped at it. What I don't understand is what they hope to get out of it, Apros said. Have you paid them for this so-called mining world? They don't want money, Lakinda said. The whole horrible thing suddenly made sense. They're getting exactly what they want. 3 of the 40 great families are preparing to fight to the death to own a worthless piece of rock. And each of the 3 is allied to one of the ruling families, Apros said grimly. They're trying to start a civil war. And they're damn well likely to succeed, Lakinda said bitterly. I don't know about the other families, but I have a frigate and a light cruiser. Even with thrown-together crews, that represents a lot of firepower. I suspect the other families have only patrol ships, Thrawn said. But depending on how far their leaders were willing to strip away their planetary defenses, they could bring a fairly comparable number of lasers to the scene. Yes, Lakinda agreed. But how did they pull it off? As far as I know, the Agbui never left Xelwis. Maybe that group didn't, Apros said, but it's starting to look like they had other groups scattered around the Ascendancy, spinning their own little poison webs. I agree, Thrawn said. A coordinated operation, exquisitely planned and timed. Never mind the artistic beauty of it all, Lakinda snarled. We need to send a warning to Shilla right away. We're already too far out for a clear signal, Apros said. Besides, it's too late for them to send anyone to stop it. Mid-Captain Apros is right, Thrawn said. However, there may be something the 3 of us can do. Senior Captain Lakinda, how much do your officers and warriors know about your mission? Nothing, really, Lakinda said. Certainly not the end goal. I don't give them those details until we reach the planet. We'll go with that for now, but I reserve the right to revisit it if we come up with something better by the time we arrive. I'm open to suggestions, Thrawn said, assuming there's time to reconfigure for an altered plan. There is that, Lakinda conceded. All right, what do you need from me? First of all, we need to know where we're going, Apros said. Can you send us the location? Of course. Lakinda snagged her questas, punched up the mining planet's coordinates, and keyed them into the transmission. You should have it now. Confirmed, Apros said. Senior Captain Thrawn? Yes, I have it, Thrawn said. I assume, Senior Captain Lakinda, that you don't have any Skywalkers with you? No, we're traveling jump by jump. Good, Thrawn said. Then Mid-Captain Apros and I should be able to arrive ahead of you and the other family's forces. Assuming those warships also don't have Skywalkers, Apros warned. I can't imagine they do, Lakinda said. But I suppose it's possible. Do you want me to try to speed up and get there a little sooner? I may be able to shave a few hours from my timetable. That would be helpful, Apros said, but only if you can do it safely. And without arousing any suspicions, Thrawn added. I'll do what I can, Lakinda said. Shall I try to contact you again along the way? I doubt you'll be able to, Thrawn said. From now on, we'll be spending as much time in hyperspace as our Skywalkers can handle. Good luck, Senior Captain. And to you too as well, Lakinda said. There's one more thing. Mid-Captain Apros? Yes, ma'am, Apros said. Lakinda took a deep breath. She'd so badly wanted this. So badly wanted to bring honor to the Zodlak family, and in doing so bring honor onto herself. Instead, she was poised to bring ruin on everything. Not now. Not anymore. Your mission, she told him, is to keep whatever happens from escalating into a civil war. If accomplishing that mission requires the destruction of my 2 ships, understand clearly that we and I are expendable. Senior Captain, no argument, Apros, she said, or from you, Thrawn. I wasn't going to offer one, Senior Captain, Thrawn said mildly. Be assured in turn that we'll do everything we can to avoid any such sacrifices. I appreciate that, Lakinda said, but I'm serious. So are we, Apro said. We'll see you in a few days, Senior Captain. Good luck. The comm keyed off. Lakinda laid back down and for a minute stared at the ceiling. A massive deception and manipulation. A possible civil war, and only the Grey Shrike and Springhawk poised to defuse it. 2 heavy cruisers, and Thrawn's plan. She'd been wrong earlier, she realized now. It wasn't Thrawn who'd borrowed tactics and strategies from Admiral Aralani, but Aralani who'd observed and adapted Thrawn's methods for herself. Thrawn's methods were Thrawn's, all the way, because Aralani would never try something this insane. Neither, for that matter, would Lakinda herself. Maybe Thrawn had merely been lucky all these years, his victories as much a product of that luck as they were of his plans. Or maybe there was something inherent in his way of thinking that drew his opponents into his schemes at precisely the times and places where he needed them. But that didn't mean he was better than Lakinda. Better and worse were artificial and meaningless concepts. He'd had his victories, she'd had hers. No better or worse, just different. Propping herself up again, she tapped for the bridge. "Duty officer, this is Senior Captain Lakinda," she identified herself. "I'll be there in 15 minutes. In the meantime, the pilot is to start running some numbers. He has until I arrive to figure out how to speed up our passage, and alert the apogee that I'll want the captain and first officer available to talk in 1 hour." She got a confirmation and keyed off the comm, the words again racing through her mind. Deception, civil war, expendable. Was Thrawn willing to die for the Ascendancy? She didn't know. Maybe that, hopefully, neither of them would have to find out over a worthless piece of rock. Swinging her legs over the side of the bed, she grabbed her uniform from the valet stand and started getting dressed. The 2 Sodlak warships had left. Haplif couldn't see them from Lakfro's ranch, but he knew by the sudden decrease in local comm activity that they were gone. Gone on their mission to bring glory to the Sodlak family and Councillor Lakuviv. And with that, it was over. At least Haplif's part was. The coming battle, the fury and death, the destruction and screams of betrayal, the descent into confusion and civil war, all those, of course, were yet to come. But they were inevitable. Just because the Chiss Ascendancy didn't yet realize its doom had been sealed didn't mean there was any way for them to escape it. It was over. Now, finally, Jixtus would let him go home. There were still a few random seedlings left in the spice plot, he saw as he finished the last row. But suddenly he didn't care whether he got them all or not. Yopanek was off the ship on some errand. Shimkif had contrived for him. All the rest of the equipment and people were packed up, and Shimkif had the crew working on launch prep. Haplif's original plan called for them to leave in half an hour, but there really was no reason they couldn't lift off right now. He straightened up, closing the box of seedlings and looping the strap over his shoulder. "I hear you're leaving," a voice came from behind him. He turned. Focused on the spices and his own musings, he hadn't heard Lakfro come up behind him. "Yes, it's time for us to move on," he told the rancher, keeping his voice cheerful. "New worlds, new vistas, new experiences, an exciting time in our continuing journey through the universe. I want to thank you for your hospitality in letting us use part of your land." "That's it?" Lakfro asked. "Just a few random words of thanks?" Haplif crinkled his forehead skin, taking another look at the rancher. The Chiss was dressed differently than usual, with heavier boots and coveralls. Instead of his usual light jacket, he was wearing a checkered brown monstrosity with a big brass-tooth sealer down the front. His usual electric jolt animal control stick was holstered to his right thigh, but today he was also wearing a second lure stick on his left. His feet were spread slightly apart, as if he was preparing for a fight, and his glowing red eyes were narrowed with suspicion. "I'm sorry if our thanks were inadequate," Haplif said, still keeping his tone light. "Would an epic poem be more to your liking? Perhaps a musical interweave in 5-part harmony?" "Don't be sarcastic," Lakfro said. "It doesn't fit your public image. No, I was thinking maybe more of your precious wire jewelry." Haplif's mouth started to quiver with surprise. Ruthlessly, he forced it shut. "Our jewelry?" he asked carefully. "Oh no, of course not," Lakfro said. "I forgot. Those are just for bribes, aren't they?" And with that, Haplif realized he was going to have to kill him. He'd hoped to avoid any more killing. not for any moral reasons, but because it was such an unpleasant feeling to wrap his fingers around someone's throat and feel their fear and hopelessness as he drained the life from them. On the other hand, he'd never really liked Lockfro. The rancher had always held himself aloof from his guests, suspicious and unfriendly, and way too inquisitive about what the Ogbui were doing. This killing he might actually enjoy. "You see, you made a mistake," Lockfro went on. "You forgot who we were." "Who, the grand and mighty Chiss?" Haplif scoffed, starting to ease toward the other. "Don't make me laugh. You have the same weaknesses and passions as everyone else in the chaos, and are just as easy to manipulate," he snorted. "If anything, this insane family setup of yours makes it even easier. All that ambition and infighting and suspicion are perfect for my kind of operation." "And that's where you're right about the ambition and infighting parts, but you never understood the family part." "Hardly," Haplif said, still drifting forward. The rancher was almost within grabbing range now. "Family is genetics and bloodlines and annoying relatives, nothing more." "You're wrong," Lockfro said. "It's also friendship, loyalty, support, and communication." He raised his eyebrows. "Especially communication. We talk to one another, the Zodlak do. Our leaders may wallow in ambition, but the rest of us talk to one another. We talk here in Red Hill, we talk elsewhere around the planet, and we even talk to relatives on Naporar." Haplif frowned. "Naporar? Where the headquarters of the expansionary defense fleet is located," Lockfro said. "I sent Lacris's brooch there to be analyzed. In return, my cousin told me that the whole fleet has been turned upside down, with Sodlak family officers and warriors summoned here to Selwys. So someone outside of Councillor Lakuviv's circle knew about that. Unfortunate, but hardly calamitous. Nothing Lockfro could do could change any of it." "What does that have to do with me?" he asked. "Don't play stupid," Lockfro said scornfully. "It doesn't work any better than the sarcasm. You hand out jewelry, you spend hours with Councillor Lakuviv, Patriel Lakuni vanishes for days at a time, ships full of warriors assemble here." The rancher shook his head, drawing his right-hand lure stick and pulling down the tab of his jacket. Frosif had been right. The odd thought occurred to Haplif. The sealer did sound like a flat blast artillery shell coming at them. "This sort of thing doesn't happen on Selwys," Lockfro continued. "Not unless there's some alien in our midst pulling on our strings." "I have no idea what you're talking about," Haplif insisted. "Almost there?" "I think you do," Lockfro said. He thumbed the lure stick switch, and Haplif heard the faint, high-pitched warning whine of the device's full power setting. Haplif had seen Lockfro's daughter take down a full-grown U-ball with that setting. He had no interest in seeing what it would do to him. Fortunately, he wouldn't have to. One leap forward, and the rancher would be his. "And pretty soon everyone else will know it too," Lockfro said. He ran the sealer tab back up again, as if he'd belatedly noticed that the air out here was a little chilly. He started to step back, as if also belatedly realizing how close Haplif had come. And then it was too late. Haplif leapt across the gap separating them, his left hand flashing out to slap at the side of the lure stick. Lockfro's feet stumbled as he tried to back up, his left hand fumbling for the second lure stick holstered on that hip. But he didn't have a chance. Haplif caught the man's neck in his right hand, wrapping his long fingers around the throat as he took a half-step to the side to crowd against Lockfro's arm and keep him from drawing the second weapon. The rancher's emotions flooded across his mind, ripples of anger and betrayal and determination. Haplif clenched his hand tighter, savoring the feel of the raw emotion, waiting for the fear and hopelessness that would soon spread across the anger. The racing footsteps had just registered in his ears and mind when something slammed into his side, and a stabbing pain exploded through his right arm. The impact threw him to the side, the agony in his arm tearing his grip off Lockfro's throat. He twisted his head around as he fought for balance against the sudden weight trying to drag him to the ground. To find one of the Grozer border hounds clinging to him, its white teeth clenched solidly around his arm, its hind legs making little furrows in the dirt, a low snarl rumbling from its throat. Haplif cursed, staggering back against the animal. He grabbed at the upper jaw with his left hand, trying to pry the damn mouth open. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the rancher had recovered from his partial strangulation and was coming toward him, lure stick raised high. Despite the pain, Lackfro might think he was helpless, but in calling the grozer down on him, the fool had just handed him a weapon he would never even think of. He watched as Lackfro moved closer, still prying at the animal's jaw, judging his timing. And as Lackfro stretched out the lure stick, Haplif heaved his shoulder and hips around, putting his full weight into swinging the grozer that was hanging from his arm around to slam into the rancher's side. Lackfro staggered, the lure stick swinging wide. It was only then that Haplif saw the second lure stick ready in Lackfro's left hand. But again the rancher was too late. With a supreme effort, Haplif broke the grozer's momentum and started it swinging back toward Lackfro. Electric weapons, he knew, normally required a few seconds to recover from a discharge. If he could get Lackfro to waste that first shot, he would still have him. The lure stick was reaching out toward him. With a snarl of triumph, Haplif slammed the grozer into the weapon's tip. There was a small flash, a half-seen burst of coronal energy, and the animal's body went rigid. And Haplif screamed as the creature's jaws convulsively tightened around his arm, the teeth tearing through skin and muscle, snapping bone and severing artery and vein. He was on his back on the ground, still screaming, when the shadow of his ship passed over him. Perhaps Shimkif had seen that he couldn't be rescued. Perhaps that was merely her excuse for abandoning him here. Perhaps his death had always been part of her plan. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered. Not anymore. Because he'd won. Whatever happened to him now, the Chiss ships were on their way, and their civil war had begun. The last thing he saw before the darkness took him was Lackfro's glowing red eyes gazing